Yesterday, he talked about routines that can help you achieve any goal. And today's cognitive training, we're going to talk about a universal set of writing tools. Subtractive writing, more editing, will definitely help you become a qualified writer. Subtractive writing plus more modification. Management guru Drucker said that people get information in two ways. One is the reader, mainly by reading to get information. One is the listener, mainly by listening to get information. Among us presidents, Eisenhower is the reader and Lyndon Johnson is the listener. Few people are both readers and listeners at the same time. It doesn't matter whether you read or listen, just match it. Well, you have to know whether you are a reader or a listener, and manage yourself accordingly. This is talking about the input end. I look at the other end. The output is also divided into two types of people. One is the author and the other is the speaker. At the same time, few people are proficient in writing and speaking. Even geniuses such as Alberto Hirschman, the great economist and political scientist of the 20th century we talked about before, chose to escape from Harvard and go to the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton. Because he writes first class, lecturing is a disaster, there is no need to lecture at Princeton. Not long ago, a friend said to me, "Envy you can write." I said, "Envy you can speak." Chinese people value writing, but there are few available Chinese writing guidelines. When I was a teenager, I read Wen Xin Diao Long and Human Ci Hua. The 4 characters are beautiful, but after reading them, I still don't know how to write a chapter. The nutrition I get for my writing comes mainly from writing guidelines in the English-speaking world. From the traditional classic The Elements of Style, to The Economist's Guide to Writing Standards, to the best-selling novelist Stephen King on Writing by King, to On Writing Well by William Zinsser. The grammarians of the English-speaking world are in the same vein and have the same views. First, a good article should be clear, concise, and accurate. Second, to explain things clearly, so we should use more verbs and nouns. To describe less, so we should refrain from using adjectives and adverbs. Third, use plain language to say things clearly, do not use jargon. Fourth, delete everything that can be deleted. Fifth, writing is a craft. A lot of training is the most important, to write more. Sixth, revision is the real secret of writing, and it needs to be changed. 1,000 words can be relied on, and even if there is a genius, you can't count on it. Chinese people like me, when they read these for the first time, often have an epiphany and are enlightened. The Chinese writing tradition is addition, and there is no guide on how to add it. The article is naturally wonderful, and I don't know how to get it. The Chibao building is waved, and I don't see how to wave it. The use of the wonderful, care about the heart. Such insights are so wonderful that they are of no use to mortals. Writing shouldn't just be a matter of genius. Genius is rare. You can't turn an ordinary person into a genius writer, but it is possible to turn him into a qualified author. Rodin said to chisel away all the unnecessary stones, and the rest is sculpture. The same is true for writing advice in the English world. Don't write useless things, don't write unnecessary things. Don't write flashy things. If you write them all, delete them all, and the rest is a qualified article. How good it is depends on how good you want to say it. Subtractive writing plus more changes will definitely turn you into a qualified author. French writing and classical style. However, in addition to subtraction, it is impossible not to talk about addition when talking about writing. Master said that quality is better than text, and quality is better than history. It is better to be gentle. In addition to knowing how not to write, you have to know how to write well. Steven Pinker's new book, The Sense of Style, The Thinking Person's Guide to Writing in the 21st Century, is an additive writing book that talks positively about how to write. Pinker, a cognitive scientist, linguistic psychologist, and leading Pulitzer Prize-winning author, believes that traditional writing guidelines are too rigid and outdated, and aims to systematically reorganize writing guidelines based on the latest achievements in cognitive psychology. The title of this book, The Sense of Style, undercuts the classic The Elements of Style. And the subtitle, A Writing Guide for 21st Century Thinkers, is ambitious. English is different from Chinese, but the human cognitive mechanism is the same. Most of the writing suggestions in the book are also applicable to Chinese writing, which is universal. The network of thoughts through the tree syntax, with linear words to unfold. Pinker said in one sentence that the difficulty of writing, but also opened the door to writing. Pinker introduced a writing method called classic style. Classic style has several characteristics. The first is to organize the narrative structure around vision. Vision is a metaphor here. The reason why the author has something to write is because he sees what the reader has not yet seen. So he guides the reader's attention and looks at it all the way, vividly. The author opens the window for the reader, not to shout out the truth directly, but to present it for the reader to discover for himself. Classic style is not a monologue or a declaration. It is not a catharsis of the author's emotions or a unilateral declaration of the truth of the universe. It is bright, but not straightforward, and it will not tell you 1, 2, or 3 in a step-by-step manner. The early bird gets the worm. This is straightforward style. The early bird gets the worm, but the late mouse gets the cheese. This is classic style. The author writes here, the reader sees here, looks at each other across time and space, and smiles, leisurely heart will. Second, pay attention to rhythm. A good article must be readable, not only readable, but also readable. If the meaning is similar, choose the catchy word as much as possible. When making a sentence, use short sentences as much as possible. If there is a long sentence, first think about how to convert it into a short sentence. Conversely, if you don't use long sentences, you should use them until they are surprisingly fresh. If the article is full of long sentences that can't be read in one breath, you have already put it down. But if it is mostly short sentences, and occasionally read long sentences, you will know that this is a signal specially sent to me by the author, and you must stop. Receive it attentively. The third is the use of words. The proliferation of terms Mandarin and clichés is not necessarily because the author deliberately wants to hide important information, but because everyone has cognitive limitations. The brain's working memory can only pay attention to 3 or 4 things at the same time. In order to expand the processing power, it has to use chunking. Label the information classification and repeatedly overlay it. This is a way for the brain to expand its processing power, but it also causes trouble for readers to understand. And readers may not understand the labels that the author understands. This cannot be solved by the author simply transposing to the reader's position. Because the author is limited by his own existing cognition and does not know what the reader does not know. What to do? If you can, ask someone to read it first. If you can write again, you will need an editor. Bai Jui asked the old woman to read his poem, which is the reason. If you don't edit it, read it aloud several times by yourself. If you can't read it, there must be a problem. In addition, traditional writing guidelines are too dogmatic and too harsh on new words. When it comes to the elimination and inheritance of words, traditional writing guidelines in English basically reject the use of new words. But words are alive, they are created every day. Languages are all hybrids, there is no such thing as purity, so good writers always pay attention to new words. But another fact is that the survival rate of new words is extremely low. And the vast majority die quickly, and only those that can stand the test of time can be circulated. Good writers must have a judgment on which new words will survive, which is called language sense, but old words are preferred if they are unsure. Taking myself as an example, no more than 10 new words enter my own language collection every year. Orwell and Churchill both said something similar. Using the new word is adventure, and it is necessary to use it very appropriately. Otherwise, it is better to use the old word, because the latter has been tempered by countless people for hundreds of years. The most boring is to use semi-new words that are not even adventurous, just a step too late to be fashionable. I guess the word post-truth will stand the test of time, but what is a cloud has proven to be a cloud. The fourth is syntax. Western characters are clauses with clauses. In extreme cases, a page has only one paragraph, and a paragraph has only one sentence. Chinese is not so exaggerated. Whether it's Chinese or English, The cognitive logic of the brain is the same. Pinker said that to start with the easy and then the difficult, put the most complex and difficult content at the end of the sentence. The easy before the difficult requires the least cognitive load on the reader. And the obstacle has been cleared when the reader is faced with the most difficult content. The fifth is grammar. Pinker calls it the arc of coherence. After the beginning, how do you start the topic, connect, and plan the layout? Pinker borrowed the concept of Hume and decomposed the arc of coherence into three main relationships: similarity, proximity, and causality. The so-called similarity means parallel structures such as juxtaposition, contrast, and progressive progression, 1, 2, 3, 4. In summary, on the one hand, and on the other hand, and so on. Proximity mainly refers to the chronological order, in reverse order and interpolation. The first choice is cis recitation, which requires the least cognitive load on the reader. Interlude or flashback should not only be used with caution, but also to achieve a special purpose, so that the reader realizes that this is the signal the author has sent me, again, in chronological order. Causality is not only narrowly defined as because, so, Pinker also regards refutation and limitation as causality in the law, such as unless, although, but etc. Summary of this lecture. To sum up, today's thinking training, we talk about writing. Qualified writers must first pursue subtraction. To turn qualified writers into good authors, they must learn to do addition. The wisdom of doing addition, which I was inspired by Pinker's book Awareness of Writing Style, also recommends you to read it.